Hey, today I want to talk about the new MacBook Pros and more specifically in my case the 14-inch MacBook Pro. Since I have used both the 16-inch and the 13-inch M1 MacBook Pro in the last year, I think I'm in a pretty good position to compare the three of those and also give my thoughts about which MacBook I think is the best for my use case. Being an online marketing consultant and an entrepreneur who works remotely most of the time, I'm gonna talk about the M1 MacBook Pro, more specifically the 14-inch model. Nicely embossed MacBook Pro in here, which is a nice detail. You don't see it that often, but it's pretty nice. More of a retro design, with like the feet underneath here. I really like this form factor. It's like a nice MacBook Pro. And I think the biggest test that I put my MacBook through so far has been my 1-month trip to New York City. So while I was in New York, I basically had my MacBook with me at all times. I used it to edit some of these videos while I was sitting in a coffee shop, but I've also used it during travel on the airplane, for example, and also at all times while I was on the go. So I think I really put the MacBook to the test, and I'd like to share my thoughts about that. So at first, the new design takes a little bit getting used to, especially since the MacBook got a little bit thicker. I think mainly because they now fitted a 1080p camera in there, which means that they needed a little bit more space at the screen as well. And also their design has more gone back to the days of the PowerBooks. So we're getting like more of a retro design, let's say. But even already after a couple of days, I really like this new design style for the new MacBook Pros, and you get used to it like pretty fast. Another noticeable change has been the black inlay for the keyboard. It's a nice addition, like it's not very much, as a small detail, but I really enjoy it having this way. And of course, we have the full row of function keys back at the top now. As for the screen size, like I said in the beginning of the video, I've worked with both the 16-inch MacBook Pro, which has been the one that I've been working with for the longest time. I think ever since 2009, 2010 somewhere. I got my first MacBook Pro, which was a 15-inch, then to the 15.4-inch, and that eventually became the 16-inch. And then in the last year, I decided that I wanted to try out the M1 processors for one, so I had to go back to the 13-inch, but it was also a screen size that I wanted to test out because of its added portability. Now, with the new MacBook Pros, we have the 14-inch, and that's the one that I got. And so far, I think it's the perfect middle ground between portability and productivity. I feel that the screen with the smaller bezels is large enough for anything that I need to do. Can I use some extra screen, for example, when editing videos? Yeah, sure, that would come in handy. But I didn't experience any issues so far with editing videos on the 14-inch screen using Premiere Pro. As far as the processor is concerned, I have the M1 Pro model with, I think, the 10-core CPU, but let me double check that. So yeah, I have the M1 Pro with the 10-core CPU, 16-core GPU and 16-core neural engine. Also, I got 32 GB of memory because I think extra memory can also always come in handy. And since I have the price up here now anyway, this one comes in at $2,900 US. So basically the model that I got is upgraded one step from the base model and then also has the additional memory in there. And so far this processor has been amazing. I was already very surprised with the 13-inch M1 MacBook's performance, but this performance for this MacBook has been even more crazy. To give you a quick example, while I was in New York, I also took on the challenge to shoot a vlog and then also edit a vlog in one day. And while I was doing this, I was actually importing the footage on the go and also starting my edit on the go to be as efficient as possible. And all of the footage that I was shooting was also using the iPhone 13 Pro and then using the new ProRes 4K recording feature that we have on there. I'll link the video up here in case you want to see it. But this performance while I was on the go working on this footage, working on this edit, the performance was amazing. Like, there wasn't one hiccup, and also the battery life, it's just insane. I didn't even bring my charger like any day while I was on the go in New York, just because I was that confident that the battery will last the entire day, even when I was editing videos. So as far as the keyboard is concerned, Apple did hit a bit of a rough patch over the last couple of years, but the keyboard was already a lot better on the last M1 MacBook Pro, and on this 14-inch M1 Pro MacBook Pro, the keyboard got even better. It's so amazing to type on. I even don't like using my at-home setup that much anymore, just because the keyboard on my MacBook Pro is way nicer to type on than my external keyboard here. Which is a couple of years old, so I guess maybe the new ones have the same mechanism as the M1 MacBook Pro 14-inch does right now. But at this time, I really enjoy the keyboard on the 14-inch MacBook Pro. And of course, there's the return of the ports. On this specific M1 MacBook Pro, we have 3 Thunderbolt ports, 1 SD card slot, 1 HDMI port, and we have 1 headphone jacket. I really love that I don't have to bring a dongle with me anymore to import the footage from these SD cards, for example. But other than that, I didn't really miss the ports. The only thing that I had an issue with regarding the ports on the last M1 MacBook Pro is that both of the Thunderbolt ports were on the left side of the MacBook, and my cable for this setup was just too short to plug it in that way while I had the screen open. On the new MacBook Pro, this isn't an issue anymore, since it also has Thunderbolt ports on the right side as well. For the HDMI ports, I don't use it that often, to be honest. I think the main thing here is that it's nice to have the extra Thunderbolt ports as well as the SD card reader, so I don't have to bring that dongle with me anymore. But other than that, I didn't really miss the ports in the past anyway, to be honest. And last but not least, I already talked about this a little bit in the beginning of the video, but we finally have a full HD 1080p camera in the MacBook Pro. So this has been something that I've been missing for like the longest time over the last editions of the MacBook Pros. They stick to the 720p cameras. Probably it had to do because the screen had to be thin and you can't really fit that camera in there then. I'm not an engineer, but I'm assuming this. No, because they made like a little bit of a compromise in the design, like the MacBook got a little bit thicker, but you get used to it pretty fast. They were able to put in a 1080p camera and it has been so great. People have been complimenting the quality of my video during Zoom meetings now, so it's definitely something that's getting noticed. Maybe as some quick foresight to my upcoming video, I will be doing a video about everything that I carry with me, like my everyday carry, and also my bag, like the new bag that I got, that I also used while I was in New York City. So this is the Peak Design Everyday Backpack. I absolutely love this backpack and I'm very excited to create a video about how I use this backpack and what exactly that I love about it. So make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to see that video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!